100% real with Ruby talking about the truth of progress. Most women never learn this because they solve for the wrong questions. But because you're listening to this, you are going to learn about it and you're someone who wants to learn. You're someone who cares about progress. And I want you to understand what it looks like so you don't sabotage yourself when you're on the way there. But also, I feel like a lot of people get confused about what actually creates muscle growth, where strength comes from, how to get stronger, because it's really confusing, especially when I say that just because you're getting stronger doesn't mean you're building muscle, but you're not building muscle if you haven't got stronger. I want to kind of explain it in as simple of terms as possible so that I'm not throwing jargon at you, because when people throw jargon at you, they just want to make you feel like they have the answer and you need to buy their thing. But if people can't explain it to you, then no, they don't understand. So this is where a lot of people blow their progress. And I know that because I've done it many times, because we are humans and we give into our ego. We are very ego-focused, hedonistic, centered beings that like pleasuring ourselves with dopamine, and we like chasing things. I'm someone who loves chasing things and ticking boxes and seeing progress actually show. But that's why we need to find ways or have someone give us some ways to chase it in a way that isn't going to sabotage our long-term efforts and long-term goals. Because so many times we end up then asking ourselves, am I doing something wrong? Do I need to cut my calories again? Maybe my hormones are broken. Especially when you're doing everything already, it's so easy to do that. I was having a client call. We discussed it this week. They stopped worrying about their bodies and stopped fussing over all of that stuff because they finally felt like they were in control of their results. They felt like they could actually progress. They felt like they had some agency. One of them came to me only for nutrition, but within 2 weeks of working together, she's like, I want you to do my training. And now we're doing our training. She's increased everything in the last 3 weeks by double the weight that she was using without a trainer by her side like she used to. She was training 4 days a week and then reduced it to 2 because she wasn't recovering. And now that her nutrition and her training are matching, she's able to train 4 times a week. She just asked me for the fourth and I just gave it to her. And one of the days is focused on making her a badass at pull-ups, push-ups, all the cool shit. And then the other 3 days are really heavy hard lifting. And it's exciting. She loves it. And she said that she never thought that she would love training as much as she does right now. And she came to me scared of food, scared of everything. And it was all focused on her body until we gave her something else to focus on that excites her. This is why understanding what progress looks like and not just looking through a scale lens or through progress photos is so important. That's why I get all the data from my ladies. Many people don't get the right measurements when it comes to circumference and tape measures because it can be really hard to get the same place. But a trick that I have is to actually film yourself doing it so you can get the same spots. But I get all of that to start with and then I don't get it again, because I want to teach you how to actually trust your body again. And it's hard to do that when you've been relying on all of these external measures the whole time. And it's hard to understand progress if that is all you know, because you're never going to lean into the process and it's going to continue to be the mind fuck. This is where most people self-sabotage. I used to feel like absolute shit if I didn't beat my logbook. Same weight, same reps, sometimes going backwards. Well, I thought that I was losing progress, so I would try to make up with more and add in burnouts just to make up for lost numbers. It makes sense because you've been training hard and logging everything, but then you don't see the changes in your body, so you feel like you're doing something wrong. You question everything. Some people change programs, others just add more to it that isn't on the program, and you might not even tell your coach if you have a coach. And then we might think that we're actually progressing more than we realize, or we just might think that we're progressing more by doing that until we realize a few months on that nothing really changed all that much. It just felt like it did because we were working harder. And the thing is, before you started doing all of that bullshit, you probably were progressing a shitload more than you realized. It's just that you didn't know where to look and you didn't understand what progress looks like. If you think the same weight means that the program isn't working or that you're failing or that you're weak, you're gonna end up quitting too early or giving up or losing passion in what you're doing. That's why we need to find a deeper meaning to all of this. It's hard, and that's kind of the fun part of it. If we can reframe how we see it, it gets to be this exciting thing. It gets to be this project that we work on instead of making our bodies the project. Our bodies change in the background, because it's really difficult to change food habits because food is not about just food, whereas training is just about the training. Food is deeper than that. The biggest pivot in my business came when I did a course on food psychology and on psychology itself. And it was a whole week's worth of a workshop down in Melbourne. We did all these different therapy types, understanding where these different routes to food came. And that's why food is so difficult. And if you just try to focus on the food, you're never going to fix anything. If you just focus on the diet, you're never going to fix anything. So that's not something that gives you something to drive towards. We're too busy in fix it mode instead of let's build it, let's change it, let's enhance it, let's make our lives feel good. And if you come from a place of feeling good, everything changes. But if you come from a place of, I have all these different things to fix, I'm so far away from where I want to be, you're not going to get anywhere far. And that's why this shit is important. And if you want to read a book on this, I highly recommend Ben Hardy's The Gap and the Gain. It's huge. I don't even know if he does YouTubes anymore. Back when I had the patience to sit through YouTube videos, I used to watch his YouTube videos a lot. He's great. And back before she became someone that just talks about business, if you want to go through her podcasts, I would go into the settings and listen from the oldest to the newest. But someone called Laurie Harder, if you want the links to these things, just shoot me a message on Instagram. Honestly, I respond to everybody, literally everybody. Sometimes I might take a day or 2 days, but I will always get back to you. It's just that I say I'll reply in a couple of hours and then I end up kind of forgetting about my phone because I don't like living on my phone all that much. I'm trying to use my phone more. But that aside, let's get into this. When you ditch the plan too early, you cut short all the progress that you literally just planted seeds for. It hasn't even started to flourish yet. This is where most women blow their progress, right when it's about to stick. And by stick, I mean right when it's about, like you've just learned how to do it, it's about to stick. Now you can start to progress it like it is actually going to change your body, because you need to have it stick before you can then get better at it. Kind of like if you think of food habits. I like using analogies of things that you can think about in a different way because it has you see it in a different light. I have a client, for example, her food was everywhere. And I'm like, what do you want to focus on now? She's like, well, at the moment, I'm not eating after dinner anymore, when she used to binge after dinner all the time. And then we went through a stage process to get her to this point where now she's not eating after dinner at all. She doesn't even want to eat after dinner. Riveting in this behavior, getting her to trust it. And because now her body feels safe, it's going to start to respond. She's going to have a lot less bandwidth, power wattage going into trying to form this neural pattern. So now it can go into other things before we bring in something else. I'm going to be then using what she's already done to make it better, to improve it. There's no point improving something that hasn't already been established and stabilized, and something that's consistent. That's what we want to do first. I used to obsess over week-to-week numbers. I used to obsess over all of that stuff. And when I wasn't progressing, I used to beat myself up for it. When I had a bad session, I used to beat myself up for it. If I felt weak, I used to whine and complain and say, I feel so weak, blah, 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 blah. I never wanted to let go of my nutrition. I wanted to hold the reins over everything there because I didn't trust anyone. I didn't trust my body. And as much as I didn't want someone to increase my calories. So I would not give them over the reins. I would not let them take over that. I always end up going on tangents, but this is all related to progress. We are so used to seeing progress in one way. And for me, it's because I didn't understand all of this that I was clutching on so tight to not losing it. But if you, even with your training, if you're so scared to let go of that 6th day, if you feel like if you let go of anything else, then you're going to go backwards. You're not going to be able to do as much stimulus. You don't trust the plan that you're on. You're not going to hire the coach, and you're going to hold yourself back because you don't trust letting that go. Just like some people still, it's a really hard thing to do because I'm still working with a client on this. And it's almost like what I say doesn't really hit her, which makes sense to me, which is why I just leave it at that and she can process it in her own time. But we believe what we believe to be fundamentally true. We can never see it another way, which is impossible. If you can't at least see the opposite argument to what you could be saying, then that's when you know that you're in a fixed position that's completely emotionally influenced, because there has to be other alternatives to it. It might just be that yours is a better alternative if your case wins. So there's that. You can be getting stronger without building muscle. Progress doesn't just mean more weight. Both truths can coexist. So you can be increasing weight and not progressing, or you can be progressing without the weight going up. And as I mentioned, there are 6, I think I said 7, but there are 6 different adaptations that can increase your strength, but only one of them actually builds muscle tissue. There's motor learning, I'm going to explain what they all mean. So, motor learning is inter-muscle coordination, there's intra-muscle coordination, there's neural drive, there's fiber recruitment, and then there's the hypertrophy, the myofibrillar hypertrophy, which I'm going to touch on in 2 different brackets because this is where you might feel like you grow muscle too fast or you get bulky too fast, which there is no such thing. So motor learning is literally just your brain becoming more efficient at firing in that particular movement pattern. Intermuscular coordination is the coordination between muscle groups. So yeah, different muscle groups. Let's just say your legs and your upper body, like how they all move together as a system. Intra is inside. That's the motor units within the actual muscle fiber, them getting used to firing together. So the brain becoming more efficient is motor learning. And then there's the intra, which is motor units within that muscle group. And then there's the muscle groups coordinating with each other to fire in the right way. And then with that, there's the neural drive. So we got better at the actual motor learning and the inter and intra. Now it's getting more signals from the nervous system for more force output. So you're getting neurological progression. That's what that one is. And then there's muscle fiber recruitment. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up because we need to recruit all of the muscle fibers, the smaller ones and the larger ones. Like we want to recruit as much as possible. The type 2 muscle fibers are the ones that are more responsive to the effective reps. So once you get into the effective rep range, that's what's going to be recruited. Like once the other ones, the lower threshold units are recruited and then they're kind of tapped out, then we're going to need to recruit more and more to lift that load as you get into the effective range, except most people never really get into that because once they fatigue at that halfway point, they just give up. And that's why getting better at heavier loads between the 6 to 8 rep range or even the 4 to 6 rep range in sometimes, that's what's going to get you better at recruiting those particular muscle fibers. But it takes skill, it takes practice, and this is why you can't change your programs regularly. I went through that on the last solo podcast. And then there's the hypertrophy, muscle building, muscle growing. There are 2 different types. There's a sarcoplasm, which is you feeling like you're getting bulky. That's bulky muscle. And then there's myofibrillar hypertrophy, which is lean muscle. That is actual muscle tissue. And that is the slowest of all to build. You can grow quite a lot within your first year. And by quite a lot, I mean 2, 3, 4 kilos in that year. Like that is the most likely if you have everything under par. Like this is before perimenopause. If you're in perimenopause, it will be a fight to get 4 kilos. It is really hard. Like after the first year, you'll be lucky to even get 2 kilos after that because muscle growth is really freaking slow. The majority of people on average only build about maths. I got my numbers. Yes. So about 4 kilos, 5 kilos max in the year. And then in your second year, you'll be lucky to even gain 2, maybe 3 kilos. And then after that, you'll be lucky to even gain an extra kilo, like very lucky to gain an extra kilo over a year. That is how freaking slow muscle growth is. It is slow. And then after your 3rd year, it's not even worth calculating. Like you're fighting for that muscle growth. That is why it is absolutely insane and ridiculous to believe that you're going to get bulky. It is so hard. Within your first year, yeah, okay, cool. But muscle is lean. That is going to make you so metabolic. Like imagine if you put the first 2 years of the best time to build muscle to go all into it without dieting. Because after your 2nd year, it's going to become slower because you're already neurologically and muscularly efficient. Like this is proper training. Like if you've already been training all these times and it's like, well, what's the point? Well, you haven't been training properly. You can actually do this. Give yourself 1 to 2 years of eating and maintenance minimum, maybe a slight surplus and going all into muscle growth because you can lose that 6 kilos, 4 to 6 kilos. Let's just say 4 to 5 because that's the majority. 4 to 5 kilos in a year if you're doing everything right and in a slight surplus. First year, 4 to 5 kilos. You can lose 4 to 5 kilos of fat in less than 12 weeks if you do this process right, depending on your starting point too. This is why we need to understand the nature of progress. And it is really freaking slow. We need to get used to that. So that's the hypertrophy part. Fibrillar plus sarcoplasmic. Don't get confused with sarcoplasmic hypertrophy because that's going to happen. That's bulky muscle, but it's not fat and it's not muscle. It's neither of those. So it's something you don't need to worry about. We need to be okay with that. Stop judging your progress on the loudest metric. Judge it by the most accurate metric. So the lattice metric, yes, I know, the scale, progress photos, blah, 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 but you're not going to see it on those lattice metrics. Just because you can measure with it or just because you can measure it doesn't mean it's worth measuring. Now, On that same note, that is exactly why you can get stronger. You can still get stronger when you're cutting weight. You can still get stronger in a deficit, but you're not building muscle. That's the very reason why, because it's one of the other five there. And that's exactly why also you do not want to change your program in a deficit, because you want that recoverability and you want to at least be trying to keep muscle. And it's hard to keep muscle if you're always changing the program and not properly sending a progressive stimulus to that muscle to stay there. So you want to keep at least 4 to 6 weeks of consistent training before you enter a fat loss phase. This is why you don't change your programs all that much. People do things so randomly. Make sure that you've given yourself 4 to 6 weeks on a program before you enter a deficit. And then that deficit for 6 to 8 weeks, 12 weeks maximum on that same program. Because the main goal is to keep muscle and do everything you can to build muscle, even if you're not technically building muscle. That is the best place to do that. The only time you will change your program is if your program is already ridiculous and it needs fixing. Because too many people are doing too much of ineffective work that it's just burning you out. And don't go adding cardio on top of that. Don't go adding cardio just because you're starting a cut. Things need to be strategically planned in. If you're going to take away from your recovery resources, you're going to lose muscle. And that's where most people also sabotage themselves. So that part with the changing programs, that part with the adding in cardio randomly. But I feel like the boredom isn't because of the program. The boredom is because you feel like it's not working. The boredom is because you feel like you're failing. Boredom is because you feel like you're weak. You can't progress. Like something's wrong. Like that's just not understanding progress. Because if you understood progress, I don't think there'll be that much boredom there. We can find other ways to be excited about it. We need to find other ways to be excited about it. Because people would argue, yeah, but you're supposed to enjoy what you're doing, have fun with what you're doing. Well, whoop-de-doo. Aren't results exciting enough as it is? Don't you want results? Don't let emotions dictate the plan. Have things that excite you in with it. That's why I always say, have the majority of what you need, but have an icing of what you want. Kind of a cake, an icing of what you want. So yeah, I think my quotable for that is going to be women are like this. Women don't get bored of the plan. Women don't get bored of the plan. I said they get bored of feeling like they're failing, but I think I'm going to change that to you don't get bored of the plan. You get bored of feeling like you suck, or you get bored of feeling like you're weak and it's not working. That's my quotable. So think of that next time. It's like, I won't get bored if I get results. I just need to push through this hard, and I need someone to teach me what progress actually looks like. Because that is the most important part there. Don't sabotage yourself because of this. Don't sabotage by changing your plan, especially when you're in a deficit. And this is why understanding what progress looks like with calories is so important as well, because if you're always dieting, then what the hell are you doing with your training? Your food and your training are never matching each other because they're always so random. Now, what does progress actually look like? Like I mentioned, it comes fast to start with, but then it slows down. And that's what we need to get used to. We can start to embrace the fact that we are doing reps better. This is where filming your lifts can come in really handy. Cleaner bracing, better tempo, you're controlling it more. You're using less momentum, you're connecting to the movement more, you're initiating with the right muscles. You finally feel your lats. Things move tighter. There are so many other ways to progress in that sense. It is so easy to feel like you need to be maxing out all the time, otherwise it's not going to work. But this is where I should apologize, because I've sent this message without meaning to by saying fail your squats, fail this, fail the other. But my failing of the squats was technical failure because I was in the lower rep range. Like I was doing 1 to 5 reps when I was always failing my squats. That's a completely different failure than taking something to true failure for hypertrophy. You don't want to fail your squats. You don't want to fail your deadlifts. Most of the time you want to be doing sub-max weight. And that's what I'm doing all the time now. I just had a period of really pushing that to see where I can push my squat up to. And it worked for that period of time. And then I had to periodize and pull it all the way back. But then I ended up getting my squats taken away from me for a different reason. Never doing that again. I'm back to them and I'm keeping them for good. You want to train like a bodybuilder, not like a powerlifter. But you do want some powerlifting elements to it at front because you want to get better at those skills. So, power builder. Progress isn't just the set, it's how you show up to every rep within that set. So make sure you film your reps and watch them over the course of the set in between your sets. What we need to understand is that mastery comes from getting better at the basics. when you stop looking for fast results, when you stop looking for dopamine hits, when you stop looking for the next best thing because you feel like what you're doing isn't working. But it's really hard to trust that when you've never really understood what it working looks like, or you measure the wrong things. So it's hard to know what's working when the measurements aren't the measurements for the results that you want, so to speak. We want to do the basics on repeat. That's the goal. That's the goal. I built my best physique by doing the basics better than anyone else. That's a good quote that you can tell yourself, because that's what I tell myself all the time. I'm building my physique because I'm just getting better at the basics and trying to get better at them than anyone else. And it's true. Because when you look around, so many people aren't doing the basic exercises properly. They're not executing them properly. The people that actually have really good form, like when I watch people's stories and when I watch other coaches' stories sharing their clients that are lifting, it is so easy for you to say, oh my God, I want that coach because that client looks amazing. You're looking at the wrong thing. Look at how she's training. All of the coaches, like, I'm like, no wonder. Because so many people sign up with coaches because their clients look amazing, but it's got nothing to do with that per se. It's got to do with the way that they're training. It's got nothing to do with some special program. It's got to do with the way that they use that program. Yes, you need a really good coach to give you a really good program, but it means nothing if you're not executing it as well as these other people. Look for the right things, because chasing the things that we think gets results is what keeps us stuck. We need to chase what actually matters, because real progress isn't visible. It isn't visible unless you're actually looking at how people execute. That part is visible. Okay. What did I miss out from here? I want to make sure I cover everything. And then I'm going to try to sum it up with some things that I want you to look out for so that you don't fall into those traps. Let's go back to strength curves. We need to understand that each lift progresses differently. For example, your lateral raises aren't going to progress the same way that you would expect a leg press to. And a lot of people, I had two guys, tell me that they don't want to do leg presses. Leg presses, lateral raises, they hate them. I'm like, why do you hate lateral raises? Because I can never progress on them. I'm like, okay, so because you can't progress on them, you don't like them, but they're probably the most effective thing that you can do if you're actually pushing them the right way. And if you're not actually pushing them the right way, how do you expect to progress them? And progress looks different for lateral raises. So just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not effective. But also just because it's hard doesn't mean it's effective. Just because you can't see progress on something, or just because something is hard, I already said this, but doesn't mean that it's not effective, because I see people do that with single leg press as well. They don't want to do it because it makes them feel weak, because they went from a million plates to like one plate or half a plate if we only talk in 45-pound plates and 20-kilo plates. We need to understand that. Like biceps versus deadlifts, different. Even squats versus deadlifts. My deadlift versus your deadlift. My squat versus your squat. I have clients that progress on squats faster than my progress curve because they're built for squats. I'm not built for squats. We need to stop comparing those things as well. We need to understand that our bodies are built differently and our programs need to reflect that. And many programs don't reflect that, which is why I get so many women come to me injured with all different injuries. And this is where I shine, and I will toot my horn. I shine here because when I get progress photos, I don't care about just seeing what someone looks like. I actually study their mechanics. I get my little ruler thing out that I have on my computer and I put it over their body just to see like where their ratios all are. Because then that tells me I need to make sure that I'm working on these areas to strengthen these areas, because otherwise that's going to be a bottleneck in the future. Like for me, my coach that I jumped to that did everything for me when everything changed, and he back in 2018 was when I actually signed up with him. Been with him, I was with him for like years and years. He knew this about me. He strengthened my back like anything, because my goal was to get my deadlift to 3 to 4 times my body weight, which I was going to go for. I was building up to my four times body weight deadlift. Like that was going to be a goal. But then lockdowns came around and I didn't even get a test for my 190 to 200 deadlift, because that's what I was going to go for at the comp. It's like, if you try to think of what progress looked like trying to get me to a 200 kilo deadlift, what do you think that looked like? Well, I progressed really fast up until 170 kilos. But then from 170 to 175 was really freaking slow. And then from 175 all the way onwards, like that shit was really slow. That's what progress looks like. We need to understand that. Because otherwise we're going to give things up. It's like, well, this isn't working anymore. And it's okay to do that. I'm so excited to get RDLs back. Really funny for the fact that I have not increased or progressed on that whatsoever. On my last program, my coach reduced it from 3 sets to 2 sets. I was still doing the same weight. I was still doing the same reps, but for 1 set less. Did I regress? the nature of progress. Like it doesn't, we need to move away from this black, white notion of what progress looks like. So important. So important. I could go on about all different other normal, slower increases, etc. But we just, as long as you understand that, I think that covers, like you can apply that to anything. And I've been hopping on about intensity all the time, but we cannot forget that intensity doesn't mean that it is effective, because we can feel like we're doing things really intense, but it doesn't mean that it's, number one, actually targeting the muscle tissue. Number two, we're actually completing the reps, because so many people half squat, etc. I can go on. So many people don't actually have the right mechanics, the right hinging, the right bracing, and it can still feel really freaking hard, but it doesn't mean it's working. Like there's so many people at my gym that continually add load over each set for their squats, but every single one of those sets was like a quarter set, a quarter rep. And so many times I want to butt in, not for the quarter rep, but because I feel like they're going to hurt themselves because of how they are on their feet. They're wobbly about everywhere wearing shoes. And I'm just like, I've seen so many people blow their knees. This is why it counts to get a coach. Like you're doing shit that needs to be addressed. And I feel like that's why a lot of people also avoid a lot of these movements, because they don't want to get injured. You won't get injured if you do it right. There's such a tiny risk of injury in the gym. And then what you do in the gym helps you come back from injury more than anything. That's something to keep in mind. So important. Most of the injury happens outside of the gym. And that's why a really good program is there to bulletproof you. And sometimes when you get niggles and injuries, it's a good thing to get them earlier on, because then that kind of tells us, okay, well, you're weak here. We need to strengthen it so that it doesn't become an issue in the future. So that being said, track the progress that actually matters. Be okay to let go of old metrics, which is really hard to do when that's all you've learned. And it's like something that you've grown up around, were brought up on. Make the data personal. Write notes. What did it feel like? Rate your sessions, not just with the numbers. You need to put your awareness into those books. That is why I hate the training apps that you can't write notes on what those things feel like and look like and anything else that you want to add in there. A lot of apps don't do that. I think once we start to see things from that scheme, that this is all about just compounding things, we just need to be okay with the emotional side of slow progress. And if you're feeling puffy, if you feel like you're gaining too much fat or getting bulky too quickly, instead of thinking that you need to cut your calories back or cut your intensity back or whatever it is, think of anything that could be contributing to it. What's your sleep like? What's your period like? What emotions are going on? Have you felt out of control of your nutrition? I have a client that I thought progressed more than anything. And then I had 2 weeks of her just like, whoa, what's going on? And and then kind of, if I didn't have to react to it, I just addressed what actually needed addressing, which weren't the body image issues. It was the fact that she was traveling these 2 weeks and felt out of control of her food. So it made very, very logical. A lot of us can't put those pieces together. We think it's a problem with our body, and then we end up doing things that keep us trapped in a cycle. This is why it really does count to get a coach. If you're tired of feeling stuck despite all of this, I coach women just like you who want to see their results and they want to train like it matters. Maybe not at first. It's just like whatever. But once they realize how good it feels and how empowering it can be and how little they can actually get away with in the gym versus having to smash themselves with all these things that aren't really all that effective. Like I had a client come to me saying, I love the fact that you said form failure. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, because I can't imagine taking every single thing the whole way through the session to failure, because that's what I had to do last time. But there were so many exercises and I was just exhausted. And that's why she didn't go to the gym for quite a while, because it wasn't like she just couldn't. But I hope this helps. I know that you haven't been taught what to look for. So now you know. I want to know, what wins have you been missing and where did you get the meaning of progress wrong? Shoot me a message on Instagram if you're ready to understand this. If you want someone who actually teaches you this stuff instead of just giving you a new plan. I hope this helps.